In the interwar period, the visions of Fátima took on a distinct significance, weaving themselves into the fabric of Catholic identity amid the turbulence of the times. As Europe grappled with the aftermath of World War I and the rising tide of modernity, the Church faced profound questions about its role in a rapidly changing world. The revelations made to the three shepherd children in 1917, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, opened a discourse within the Church, prompting theologians and historians to reassess the faith's response to contemporary challenges. At the heart of this dialogue was the idea that the Fátima visions, with their emphasis on prayer, penance, and the rosary, served as a poignant counter-narrative to the disillusionment so prevalent in the post-war landscape. The time was marked by a rise in secular attitudes, the questioning of traditional beliefs, and the emergence of new spiritual movements that often sought to redefine religious experience outside institutional confines. Yet, Fátima emerged as a bastion of hope and divine intercession, offering a vision of collective faith that resonated with many Catholics grappling with uncertainty. Prominent theologians of the era began to analyze the implications of the Fátima messages, not only in a spiritual sense, but as a socio-political phenomenon that reflected broader trends within society. Friedrich von Hegel, an influential thinker, suggested that the sustained popularity of the Fátima messages indicated a deep-seated yearning for meaning amidst chaos. He argued that the calls for conversion and authenticity in the visions beckoned not only individual transformation, but a communal turning towards God at a time when many felt adrift. Historians also noted how the Fátima apparitions were adopted into the Catholic liturgical calendar and practices, becoming focal points in sermons and community gatherings. The Feast of Our Lady of Fátima was established in the Church, and rituals surrounding the Rosary took on new urgency. Congregations began to organize monthly processions and special prayer services dedicated to Fátima, reframing these ancient practices as modern acts of faith in a world teetering on the brink of further conflict. The emotional potency of the Fátima messages, steeped in Marian devotion, resonated particularly well in countries like Portugal, Spain, and Italy, where populist movements often sought to merge national identity with religious heritage. In Spain, for example, the rise of fascism and the subsequent Spanish Civil War saw a fervent embrace of the Virgin Mary as a symbol of national pride and resistance against the perceived threats of atheism and liberalism. Religious processions honoring Our Lady of Fátima became acts not just of faith, but of political defiance, as communities rallied to affirm their beliefs against a backdrop of civil unrest. Meanwhile, in a broader European context, theologians like Jacques Maritain articulated a vision of a Christian democracy that could respond to modernity while remaining faithful to its roots. In his writings, Maritain connected the divine insights of Fátima with a broader call for social justice and hopeful engagement with contemporary philosophical questions. He believed that the visions offered a pathway to revitalizing Catholic spirituality, emphasizing that the Church must embrace the quest for truth in an age dominated by relativism. As these ideas took root, the Fátima visions began to influence popular piety significantly, shaping the culture of communities. Pilgrimages to the sanctuary of Our Lady of Fátima in Portugal surged during the interwar years, drawing thousands who sought solace in the stories of the shepherd children and the miraculous events that punctuated their lives. These gatherings became more than personal spiritual quests. They transformed into public affirmations of faith during a period marked by profound disenchantment. One could observe the impact of these gatherings in the communal activities that accompanied them. Villagers organized processes leading to the shrine, weaving through the countryside adorned with banners and flowers, invoking the same fervor that had characterized the children's original visions. Local clergy would capitalize on these moments, preaching on the necessity of repentance and prayer, emphasizing that returning to traditional values was vital in resisting the tide of secularism. In contrast, the era also witnessed a rise in the cult of personality surrounding the visionaries. Francisco and Jacinta Marto were beatified in 2000, reflecting the Church's acknowledgement of their roles as conduits of divine message. Their stories, filled with childlike faith and prophetic insight, became embedded in catechesis, allowing the faithful to interpret the visions within the broader narrative of salvation history. Lucia continued to correspond with Church officials, further emphasizing that her experiences were not merely personal but communal in their call to holiness. Within this transformative atmosphere, counter-movements emerged as well. Theologians and dissident groups within the church began to critique rigid interpretations of the Fatima messages, emphasizing the need for a more nuanced understanding of modernity that embraced rational discourse and personal experience alongside traditional dogma. Groups such as the Catholic Action sought to engage with the modern world, suggesting that a rigid adherence to mysticism should not come at the cost of intellectual inquiry and dialogue. These alternative perspectives, however, often clashed with the more conservative factions that embraced the Fatima apparitions as definitive markers of divine truth. Throughout the interwar years, the dialogue surrounding the Fatima visions fostered a profound examination of faith and identity in the Church. The apparitions became a touchstone for discussions about morality, modernity, and the need for spiritual renewal. The invocation of Mary as a figure of hope and guidance allowed many to navigate the complexities of a fractured world while holding on to the foundational elements of their faith, in essence. The impact of Fatima during the interwar period was not merely limited to the religious sphere, but extended into the very heart of culture and politics. The legacy of the visions helped to redefine Catholic responses to the disillusionment of the age, forging a collective identity that was both resilient and transformative. As theologians, historians, and ordinary believers alike engaged with the messages of Fatima, a renewed sense of purpose and direction emerged, one that the Church would continue to draw upon for generations to come. In the years following World War II, the world was engulfed in a whirlwind of change. Borders shifted, nations redefined themselves, and societal norms were irrevocably altered. Amidst this turbulence, the visions of Fatima, which had previously captivated and galvanized the faithful, began to capture renewed attention. The lingering scars of war left societies searching for meaning, for something to anchor their fraying spirits. And as the importance of traditional structures seemed to wane, many turned their eyes towards the ethereal messages emanating from Fatima. The visions, first revealed to 3 young shepherds in 1917, told of peace, war, and the importance of faith. However, it was only after the world witnessed the horrors of global conflict that the powerful messages of Fatima began to resonate with greater urgency. In the fragile tapestry of post-war life, many believers found solace in the promise of hope, divine intervention, and the call for repentance that the messages espoused. For them, Fatima was not merely a relic of a bygone era, but a living testament to faith's ability to guide souls through the darkest of times. One such believer was Maria Santos, a middle-aged woman who had lost her husband on the front lines. Her grief engulfed her, pulling her into a chasm of despair. One evening, while perusing a local newspaper, she stumbled upon an article discussing the resurgence of interest in the Fatima visions. Captivated, she recalled the stories her grandmother had told her as a child. Those tales filled with wonder and zeal suddenly took on a new significance. Maria began to immerse herself in the teachings and prayers associated with the visions. Each time she prayed the rosary, she felt a strength blossoming within her, a connection to something greater than herself that offered both healing and hope. Across towns and cities, workshops emerged where the story of Fatima was shared, embellished, and discussed. The gatherings provided platforms for believers and seekers alike to explore the messages and how they related to the pervasive sense of loss and uncertainty that shadowed post-war life. Spiritual leaders emerged within communities, offering interpretations of the visions that resonated deeply with those in search of guidance. Anecdote after anecdote arose, each recounting miraculous changes in fortunes, renewed faith, and closer familial ties fostered through the shared belief in the messages of hope believed to be imparted by Our Lady. The burgeoning media landscape played a critical role in amplifying the messages of Fatima. Television programs began airing segments dedicated to the apparitions, often featuring testimonials and dramatizations that made the story accessible to all. Documentaries emerged, chronicling the life of the shepherd children and the impact of their visions not only on the Catholic community, but also on the wider socio-religious discourse. This rise of visual storytelling offered a potent medium, allowing personal and collective experiences to pour into living rooms across the world. With the advent of mass media, the narrative of Fatima transcended the confines of the Catholic faithful. It began to resonate with people from various walks of life, sparking interest and curiosity in those looking for answers amid the chaos. Emerging spiritual movements during this era often intersected with Fatima's messages. New Age philosophies, blending Eastern spirituality with Western religious values, found common ground with the vision's themes. The messages of peace and divine love were dovetailed into broader discussions on holistic well-being and salvation, attracting diverse individuals who hadn't previously identified with traditional religious practices. In a pivotal moment during the summer of 1952, a large international pilgrimage to Fátima saw thousands of believers descend upon the small Portuguese village. The event was covered extensively by newspapers and radio stations, transforming it into a significant cultural moment. It wasn't just a gathering of Catholics. People from various spiritual backgrounds came together, united in their search for peace and meaning in the aftermath of war. The blooming flowers of faith blossomed in their hearts, offering a fragrant reminder that beauty could still emerge from despair. People from various countries shared their stories of miracles attributed to the Fátima visions. A Polish soldier recounted how he miraculously survived a traumatic skirmish, attributing his safety to a prayer he said at the shrine. A French mother shared her heartfelt tale of finding solace in the Virgin Mary's messages while comforting her chronically ill child. Each story, retold in the glow of candlelight, became a thread in a growing tapestry of hope that connected each individual to something transcendent. However, not all responses were solely positive or unifying. The era also bore witness to skepticism and the rise of counternarratives. Some critics questioned the authenticity of the visions, often attributing them to psychological states resulting from trauma or collective hysteria. In academic circles, debates flourished regarding the intersection of faith and mental health, and the influence of societal pressures on religious adherence. Despite this, many believers found strength in standing firm against skepticism, bolstered by the community that founded itself on shared experiences of faith and hope. As the 1960s dawned, with its counterculture movements advocating for radical social change and spiritual exploration, the Fátima visions found themselves intertwined in the narrative of seeking peace rather than conflict. The world was changing rapidly, grappling with an existential crisis that demanded answers. The messages of Fátima, urging for prayer, peace, and a return to faith, presented a potential balm to the societal wounds. Ultimately, the story of Fátima in this post-war landscape became more than just a religious phenomenon. It transformed into a cultural touchstone that spoke to the heart of human experience. Those visions and their messages danced in the backdrop of individuals' lives, offering threads of connection in a disjointed world. As believers shared their experiences, they found not just solace, but a revival, a rekindling of hope in a seemingly fractured society, demonstrating that even from the ashes of despair, faith could soar anew. In a small, sun-drenched room filled with vibrant tapestries and flickering candles, Father Miguel Ramos leaned forward in his chair, the lines on his face deepening as he spoke passionately about the continuing significance of the Fátima visions. The messages delivered to the three children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, are not merely relics of the past, he insisted, his tone fervent. They speak to the human condition, urgency, hope, repentance, timeless themes that resonate with all generations. Even today, in our fragmented world, the call for peace and a return to faith remains as crucial as ever. His conviction seemed infectious, an unwavering belief that the messages from 1917 bore a transcendent truth that could guide modern society. To dismiss them as mere fantasy is to close oneself off from a divine message that speaks directly to the heart of humanity's struggles, he argued. The consecration of Russia, as requested by Our Lady, remains unfinished as we see political strife and conflict recurring across the globe. Across the city, in a dimly lit cafe resounding with the clinking of cups and murmurs of passing conversations, Dr. Elena Silva, a psychologist specializing in religious phenomena, sat with her arms crossed, skepticism evident in her expression. While I understand the comfort these visions bring to many, I cannot reconcile their inherent validity, she stated plainly. People have to contextualize these experiences. Visions can often be manifestations of psychological stress, cultural context, and even social pressures. Children, especially, are highly impressionable, and it's crucial to consider the context in which these visions occurred. Dr. Silva highlighted the psychological aspects of faith, discussing how doubt plays a vital role in understanding belief systems. Faith often thrives in environments thick with uncertainty and existential fears, she explained. The messages of Fátima, while comforting, can also prompt anxiety for those who feel obliged to live up to their demands. This interplay can unleash an entire spectrum of human emotion: fear, hope, guilt. In contemporary society, where anxiety is rampant, many cling to these messages as a means of navigating their doubts, seeking solace in the idea of divine oversight. Meanwhile, Father Miguel had orchestrated a small gathering at the parish hall, inviting followers to share their insights and experiences connected to the Fátima visions. Among them was Maria, an elderly woman whose eyes gleamed with youthful fervor as she spoke of the miracles she believed had shaped her life. "For me, Fátima is not a question of belief but a lived experience," she said, her voice quivering with emotion. "I have witnessed the power of prayer, the healing that comes from dedication to Our Lady's messages. It changed my family's life, restored our faith when we faced dire circumstances." Maria reflected on a larger trend among the staunch believers, who often recounted personal testimonies of miraculous interventions in their lives. A sick relative recovering, a job opportunity appearing in times of desperation, peace descending in chaotic moments. These stories, multiplied by word of mouth and the digital world, reinforced the community of believers who rallied around the Fátima narrative, seeing it as a guide in contemporary moral dilemmas. On the other side of the discourse, academic critics like Dr. Miguel Estevez emphasized the need for a more rigorous analysis of the Fátima phenomenon. "The challenge lies in separating personal experiences from objective claims," he argued. "While stories of individual healing are powerful, they do not establish the factuality of the visions themselves. We must interrogate whether these events hold any verifiable truth or are simply part of a larger narrative that people choose to believe." Dr. Estevez also pointed out the socio-political context of the early 20th century, noting how the vision of Fátima arrived amid World War I and subsequent turmoil in Europe. This period was rife with chaos. In such times, visions can serve as a psychological coping mechanism, an anchor of hope, he said. But does that make them genuine messages from a divine source? Or are they the products of collective anxiety and yearning for understanding in a broken world? As each argument echoed around the hall, the contrast between unwavering faith and critical skepticism became a palpable tension that hung in the air. Participants began to engage in spirited discussions, some siding with Father Miguel's vision of timeless wisdom, while others echoed Dr. Silva and Estevez's concern for a critical approach to such claims. Amid the heated discourse, a young man named Ricardo, who had grown up in a non-religious household, offered a unique perspective. "I was always taught to think critically about everything, including faith," he shared. "However, what I find fascinating are the implications such beliefs have on community cohesion and personal identity. Whether or not one believes in Fátima, the community it creates can offer belonging and comfort in a world increasingly filled with isolation." This comment prompted a wave of nods and murmurs of agreement. It reminded everyone that beyond the theological debates and personal beliefs, there lingered a broader psychological reality: the human need for connection, understanding, and shared narrative. The messages of Fátima, whether interpreted as metaphoric or divine, could reflect the collective hopes and fears of the people who held them dear. As the evening drew to a close, the atmosphere shifted. People began to share their hopes and doubts, fears about the world, and a longing for connection, revealing that the essence of the debate itself, faith versus skepticism, transcended mere theological or historical arguments. Instead, it spoke to the heart of humanity's ongoing struggle for meaning in the face of uncertainty. Ultimately, in the dimly lit cafe where Dr. Silva and her peers held discussions, there was a palpable recognition that perhaps both perspectives held validity. Faith provided the lens through which devoted believers could navigate their lives, while skepticism encouraged a deeper inquiry into the nature of belief, a duality that could enrich the understanding of what it means to be human in an age of doubt. Thus, as the discussions faded into the quiet of the night, it became clear that the visions of Fátima would continue to captivate and divide, inviting scrutiny while inspiring hope. And perhaps, in this age of uncertainty, it was the very act of questioning, of gathering and sharing in community, that constituted a vital testament to the enduring human spirit. In the 21st century, the visions of Fátima echo profoundly against the backdrop of a world grappling with numerous crises, both large and small. Political unrest flares across continents, environmental challenges threaten the very fabric of life, and individuals wrestle with their faith amidst chaos. The messages conveyed by the Blessed Virgin Mary in 1917 have transcended time, resonating with a diverse array of cultures and communities that have adapted their meanings to fit the urgent needs of modern existence. The messages of Fátima, with their emphasis on peace, penance, and the call to conversion, have found new life among those confronting the disillusionment arising from political upheaval. In many nations, marginalization and conflicts have ignited passionate movements where the call for social justice echoes the plea for peace articulated by Mary. For instance, in Brazil, grassroots organizations inspired by Fátima's messages have emerged in response to rampant inequality and government corruption. These organizations emphasize communal prayer and collective action, imbued with the spirit of hope and reconciliation central to the Fátima apparitions. Activists speak of how the messages encourage dialogue, urging communities to work together across divides, as they invoke a vision of unity amidst discord. In Eastern Europe, where historical tensions remain a source of strife, the Fátima visions have been reinterpreted as a profound call to embrace forgiveness and healing. In Poland, various religious groups have organized pilgrimages to the shrine of Fátima, using these journeys as a means of fostering spiritual renewal and solidarity. Faith leaders emphasize that while the political landscape may be fraught with division, the fundamental message of prayer and penitence calls for an internal metamorphosis that precedes social change. Within this framework, Fátima's emphasis on the power of intercession has inspired many to engage in ceaseless prayer, creating vibrant communities of hope that tackle both spiritual and social issues. Conversely, throughout the Asia-Pacific region, environmental crises are at the forefront of societal fears, prompting a reinterpretation of Fátima that speaks directly to the urgent need for stewardship of the earth. In the Philippines, where typhoons and flooding have become increasingly persistent and devastating, communities have begun invoking the messages of Fátima as a rallying cry for environmental action. Environmental groups, inspired by the call to penance, have organized initiatives aimed at reforestation and sustainable living. Many adherents believe that caring for creation is a path to redemption, linking ecological responsibility with the spiritual essence of Fátima's warnings. This resonates deeply, for her messages evoke a profound connection between human behavior and the natural world, urging an ethos of respect and care for the environment as a divine imperative. In Africa, where social and economic hardships are daily realities, the Fátima visions resonate powerfully as symbols of hope. Across various communities, the emphasis on community spirit and compassion parallels local understandings of resilience and faith. In countries like Nigeria, where violent conflict has uprooted countless lives, congregations often reference Fátima's messages in their sermons, focusing on themes of peace-building and reconciliation. Subsequently, numerous initiatives have arisen, driven by this inspiration. Women's groups are particularly active, taking the lead in fostering dialogues between different ethnic groups, channeling the spirit of Fátima's peace message. These women often draw upon their shared faith to bridge divides and work towards a collective healing, unveiling local interpretations of the Virgin Mary as a matriarch of unity and strength. Similarly, among immigrant communities in the West, there is a captivating intertwining of the Fátima messages with personal struggles of faith. Here, the original call for hope and a return to spiritual roots emerges within the context of dislocation and identity crises. In areas such as the United States and Canada, churches often host programs that draw on the Fátima messages, providing sanctuary for individuals and families longing for connection. Through communal prayer events and dialogues that incorporate various cultural traditions, the messages of Fátima are infused with a contemporary urgency, addressing the spiritual vacuum that many experience in the fast-paced modern world. These gatherings become a place of solace, allowing individuals to share their burdens while fostering a collective identity rooted in a profound spiritual heritage. Innovative initiatives fueled by the presence of Fátima's messages also manifest in the realm of digital connectivity. Social media platforms have birthed a new age of evangelization, where individuals across the globe share personal testimonies of faith and transformation inspired by Fátima. Hashtags like #Fatimate21st Century create spaces for dialogues that transcend geographical boundaries, as thousands engage in prayer campaigns, meditate on the messages, and commit to activism rooted in compassion and empathy. This digital movement revitalizes the perennial relevance of Fátima, as believers from diverse backgrounds forge connections that inspire global solidarity. As the urgency of our global crises deepens, the visions of Fátima stand as a testament to resilience, the enduring power of faith, and the call for collective action. Their messages, speaking across barriers of culture and context, continue to ignite the hearts of many, grounding them in a shared mission of peace, stewardship, and hope. In a world polarized by division, Fátima inspires individuals and communities to remember the sacredness of their shared humanity. An essential reminder that, even amidst turmoil, we are called to seek the light, reach out in love, and strive for a world reflecting the profound messages bestowed upon those three shepherd children so many years ago. In the light of the Fátima visions, one cannot help but feel the weight of history pressing upon the present. As the years have rolled on since those apocalyptic messages reached the ears of the world, the echoes of faith, skepticism, and a quest for meaning continue to resonate through communities both near and far. The events that transpired in that quiet Portuguese village transcended their moment, spiraling outward into a legacy that shaped and reshaped the fabric of religious belief around the globe. The initial fervor surrounding the visions of Our Lady of Fátima was largely met with skepticism. Many dismissed the claims of three young shepherd children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, as mere fanciful imaginings, products of childish fantasy or worse, deceit. However, for those who sought reassurance and faith amidst the tumult of a world grappling with war and uncertainty, the messages seemed to sparkle like beacons in the night. They spoke of peace, hope, and a return to the divine, inviting humanity to embrace spirituality as a means of transcending earthly woes. Within the community of Fátima, the visions stirred a powerful sense of collective identity. For the villagers, the children were not just visionaries. They were conduits of divine truth. This congregation solidified the importance of shared belief, illustrating how faith could weave a tight-knit community together. Those who journeyed to the Cova da Iria were not merely pilgrims. They were seekers of solace, united by their longing for understanding in a fractured world. The shared experience of Fátima fostered a unique sense of belonging, revealing how collective faith could spawn resilient communities that stood firm against life's adversities. Yet, as we reflect on the enduring legacy of Fátima, it becomes clear that the interplay between faith and skepticism forms a crucial part of this narrative. Skepticism serves as a necessary counterbalance to unyielding belief. It challenges adherents to critically engage with their faith, asking probing questions that ensure traditions do not simply become relics of the past. In modern times, an age rife with information and rapid change, this skepticism has blossomed into a broader philosophical inquiry. Is belief enough to anchor us in an age of uncertainty? The themes explored through Fátima's legacy resonate profoundly in our contemporary search for meaning. Many people contend with a world increasingly characterized by distraction and disillusionment, where traditional sources of authority seem to waver under the scrutiny of modernity. Individuals often feel adrift, searching for a guiding framework to navigate their lives. The messages of Fátima hold the potential to serve as a compass for those navigating such tumultuous waters. They remind us to look inward, to reflect on our values, and to embrace a faith that acknowledges the complexities of belief in a world dominated by science and technology. This reflection fosters an essential dialogue. How do we integrate the spiritual with the secular? As we contemplate the future of religious belief, it is essential to recognize that, while modernity poses undeniable challenges, it also presents unprecedented opportunities. The teachings of Fátima can inspire new generations to forge a personal dialogue with the divine, valuing individual relationship over dogma. Young seekers may feel called to draw from the wellspring of tradition, while simultaneously adapting it to their lives in innovative ways that reflect contemporary realities. The emotional depth of the Fátima apparitions can catalyze transformative experiences for those who encounter them, calling into question what it means to be faithful in an ever-evolving world. Global perspectives on the Fátima visions reveal their expansive influence, as believers from all corners of the earth draw inspiration from their enduring messages. Communities of faith have sprung up, united not only by the shared experience of pilgrimage, but also by a profound commitment to humanitarian initiatives, echoing the vision of peace central to Our Lady's message. This surge in collective action serves as a testament to the ability of belief to mobilize individuals toward a greater cause. fostering resilience, solidarity, and hope. Grappling with the legacies of Fatima, one must also consider the role of prophecy in shaping religious landscapes. The challenge of discerning genuine prophecy from mere fabrications looms large, particularly in an age where the medium often overwhelms the message. The contrast between the simple yet profound calls to repentance and the often convoluted ideologies espoused by self-proclaimed prophets today illustrates the necessity of discernment in navigating spiritual truths. Ultimately, the visions of Fatima compel us to engage critically with our own beliefs while remaining open to the contributions of others. They echo the age-old wisdom that faith is a journey rather than a destination, inviting us to embrace uncertainty as we seek clarity. With every generation, we are gifted the responsibility of interpreting these lessons afresh, weaving them into the rich tapestry of our collective experiences. As new seekers wander through the shifting sands of contemporary life, the messages of Fatima may continue to shine brightly, illuminating paths toward hope, community, and introspection. These enduring visions implore us to reflect upon the nature of our beliefs in a rapidly changing world, encouraging spiritual growth that remains alive and relevant. Perhaps, in the dialogues that spring forth from this reflection, we may find ways to cultivate a renewed faith, one that ignites passion, inspires action, and fosters understanding among all people, regardless of belief. Through this lens, we can aspire not merely to amend our path, but to forge meaningful connections across divides, as we carry forth the legacy of Fatima into the future.